2008 Pontiac G6 that I won for a $750 bid, and altogether I'm around 1,200 bucks into it. I think the parts for these at a junkyard are gonna be really cheap. All we seem to need is the hood, bumper, headlight, and that's about it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. There is zero response to the steering wheel. Without further ado, let's try and start it. And look at that, once again, we have quite a clean interior. Now, in all honesty, I'm pleasantly surprised with the design of this interior. It's not ugly. It's better than I expected. Let's see. Okay, we got battery. That's excellent. 88,000 miles. We have a flashing traction control light as well as a check engine light, but that is with the ignition on and engine off. Okay, excellent. We have no check engine lights. I think I heard, yeah, there's a bit of a power steering noise, but that might go away. Potentially we are missing some fluids. I never checked any fluids, which is probably a terrible idea, but whatever. Seems to run great. No weird noises, no exhaust leaks, no check engine lights. Hopefully we can just get away by doing the body work and quickly selling it. There is some chirping. Yeah, let's pop the hood and see. Oh, something the delivery driver mentioned is that the wheels kind of toe in and it's not very drivable. And we also have the chirp, potentially an accessory belt. See if we can pop the hood. We cannot. Handle does absolutely nothing. Yeah, this chirp is definitely very audible from this side where the accessory belt is. So we probably just have like a blown bearing or something like that. Come on, how do I pop this hood? But yeah, the delivery driver said that the wheels were pointing towards each other, but to me it just looks like it is a flat tire or something. Okay, this wheel is definitely pointing a little left. I don't know. Let's give it a shot. Also has decent tires, by the way. Okay, that's drive. All right, we got forward movement. Oh. Okay, now that's definitely a first for me. There is zero response to the steering wheel. That is very bad. Okay, how am I gonna put it back? That's unexpected. Okay, that's reverse, please. Wow. That wheel is turning right. This wheel is turning left. How fun. Nice and slow. Okay, I think that's sufficient. We are parked well enough. Looks like we're still running excellent. The coolant temperature is okay. Let's check if we have heat. I think so. All right, we got heat. That is great. Some tissues. The manual, nice. This is definitely an unexpected and not a very welcome surprise. I'm not very happy about having no steering, but I suppose this is manageable, I hope. Yeah, we're gonna have to get this inside the shop. And we've done a little bit of diagnosing. Our steering issue is due to a completely ripped out outer tie rod. Never seen something fail like this before. This is kind of wild, but it happened. If I had to guess, maybe this thing smacked into a curb or something along those lines, and that's how this thing broke. So that's why we only had steering on one wheel. I didn't really know what the steering issue was. I'd never even noticed that one wheel was actually turning as it should. The passenger wheel is acting as expected. I have the tie rods on the way, as well as the lower control arm, because I think this is going to have to get replaced. It seems like it's a bit bent. And while I could be wrong, maybe this is still whole, I do want to change this because it does look like the wheel is sitting too far back. There's quite a bit of a gap in the front, but much smaller in the back. And I don't think this is where the wheel is supposed to be. I do have this Q3 that I need to get on the lift for one of my customers. And well, I can't really get this thing off of the lift if we have a broken tie rod. So we're breaking out the good old welder. The new tie rod should get here tomorrow, but I would rather get this thing done. I'm sure there's someone out there driving around with a tie rod that looks like this. Obviously, this is not very safe. I would not have this as a permanent solution. Looks like it's holding on. It's even somewhat hammer-proof. So this should be sufficient. All right, looks like we've got steering, at least for now. Excellent. She drives pretty good. So I never took the paint code of the G6. Still a mistake, but I think this is the right color. This seems to be the only one of this color. And luckily for me, it does have hood in great condition. An okay-ish bumper, better than what I have anyway. And even the driver's side fender, pretty solid. Unfortunately, no good headlights. But just somewhere over there, there it is. Look at that, a Pontiac G6 with perfectly good headlights. We're all loaded up. I think the total came out to roughly 280 bucks for hood, bumper, fender, headlight, and hood latch. Definitely on the more expensive side when it comes to junkyards. I've noticed that with this spot, but that's my only junkyard in the area, so don't really get a choice. I guess they have a bit of a monopoly here and they control the prices, but it's still cheaper than buying all of this, you know, online or something and paying for delivery and waiting for parts who knows how long. Plus I would have to get them painted if I were to buy like brand new primed parts, and the paint would be really expensive, way more than 280 bucks, that's for sure. Fingers crossed this is all of the right color. The color is close enough. I mean, it doesn't seem to be spot on, but I don't think it's gonna be too noticeable. Maybe it's just painted with significantly more wear on it. I think this car had 180 something thousand miles, so 100,000 miles more than this one, and potentially this one was stored in the garage while this one wasn't, and paint just aged a little differently. I'm hoping this can sell for around 4 grand, and so far we have 1,500 bucks invested into it, so 4 grand would be fantastic. Can't promise that, maybe it'll be like 35, but good enough. Issue number one is that I can't seem to open this hood. Potentially, let's do some more. Oh yeah. Yes, we've got oil, we've got power steering fluid, excellent. And we also have a perfect amount of coolant. Everything is pretty clean, no noticeable oil leaks. However, there is that noise that I heard at idle from the accessory belt. So one of the pulleys over there is probably on its way out. I do have to admit that removing the bumper and fender and headlight on this car was very easy compared to everything, all the other car models I've worked on. This was probably one of the easiest to work on, which I'm thankful for. Boom! I did find it a little odd that they use 7 millimeters for some of these bolts here for the headlight and the bumper. Seems like a very odd bolt choice. There we go, just pops right out. So just the 2 bolts up top, and then there's a little clip in the back here that goes into the fender, and that's it. This thing is very, very easy to remove. I love it. Go. Looks like our reinforcement bar, the actual crash bar, is almost unharmed. There's a bit of a dent here. It's not really going to cause any sort of structural integrity issues. This plastic piece here is broken. However, this metal piece here that the hinge is bolted to is definitely bent. It doesn't look too bad to an untrained eye, but there's definitely a little bit of see that? That is not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be squeezed together. And I don't imagine this is something that is, yeah, see that is spot welded. So not something you can just unbolt and replace. Same sort of issue over here. And there's a noticeable split right here in the center too. Luckily our radiator, condenser, all of this survived. Looks like, yeah, we got away pretty good, Definitely wish this metal damage wasn't here, but it's not really a deal breaker for me. This thing is unbelievably clean. I mean, even this bottom part here that is covered by the side skirt barely has any surface rust on it. Unfortunately, my bodywork skills were not enough to save the existing rust-free fender, so I had to swap in our slightly rusty fender from the junkyard. All right, and now it is time to do some pulling. Let's see if we're at all successful at it. So here's what my genius has come up with. We have a chain wrapped around the hood latch, the old hood latch that we don't really care about. We're gonna be replacing it. It's already bent, so we can use it for holding our chain in place. Wheel chock under the front wheel. I have a parking brake engaged, and then we have a strap going to my lift that should be pretty secure to the concrete below it. We have a pull ram, which uses hydraulic pressure to contract. Once I tighten this down, hopefully the car is gonna stop moving. I might even be able to do this without using the ram at all. Looks like just this strap here is starting to pull that metal back. It's not really strong metal, it's not structural. It just simply holds our radiator in place. This is kind of an interesting design, at least for me coming from European German cars. They will usually have a plastic radiator support that bolts up right around here and goes all the way down, bolts into the frame rails. Basically does exactly what this thing is doing, but it's plastic. It is replaceable. This thing, I mean, it's technically replaceable, but with a lot more work. It's not held in by bolts, it's held in by spot welds. Anyway, so this is pretty tight. Let's see if I can just keep doing this. We are making good progress. Before I couldn't even get a finger in here, and now look at this. I think that might be sufficient. Doesn't seem to want to move much more. I don't know how much more I can manipulate it, but it kind of looks like it might be right around where it needs to be. As long as it's good enough to line up our headlights and bumper, it's good enough for me. We got the bumper on, we got the hood on. I've already worked on the panel gaps, so they look acceptable. The spot where the hood lines up with the bumper in the front, that area is a little but fender to door, fender to bumper, that fender to bumper, and sides of the fender to the hood look good to me. With all the bodywork in place and secured, it's time to finish up our suspension. As you can see, this car has so little rust that even these pins are in practically pristine condition. While working on the body of domestic cars, or at least Pontiac G6s, is easier than what I'm used to, everything else might be a little harder, or at least the suspension, or at least the tie rods. That I know for sure. This is definitely less convenient than most inner tie rod replacements I've done in the past. The axle is just in my way. There we go. Excellent. Considering the condition of this car and the low mileage, I have more faith in these than the Chinese cheap replacements that I had bought. So we're gonna stick with these, but going to replace our inner tie rod. Before removing the outer tie rod from the inner tie rod, I did mark the position of the nut that was on here to make sure that we try and do our best at setting the alignment in the same spot. I'm still gonna have to go to a shop and get a full wheel alignment for this car, but this way we'll at least estimate it as best as we can as to where the tie rod should be adjusted to. I have counted 16 threads that are gonna be post nut. I've counted 16 threads at the end of the inner tie rod, so that's about how many we need over here. Screw this guy on. So now when I make this sort of straight and compare it to the other wheel here, this one looks to be pretty straight too, so looks like our toe in is more or less appropriate. And now the second task of the day is to replace this control arm, which, I don't know, hopefully is gonna be not too hard. This bolt here I was never able to fully remove because it kind of gets stuck. It doesn't go any further back into here because there's the transmission mount that's right there. So now the bolt doesn't come out all the way, and that doesn't let the control arm out of there because it's slightly still in this bushing, and I can't manage to wiggle this thing out. Seems like a pretty terrible, I mean, yeah, I don't know who came up with that, but whoever it was, I can tell you I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, seriously, who looks at this and thinks this is a great idea? Like what? I'm just gonna try and force this control arm out of here. that could damage the bolt potentially. I think the bolt is just a tiny bit too long. There we go. All right, and I don't even imagine this thing is gonna come out, like, period. This is like a permanent bolt. Unless you want to remove this transmission mount, this bolt stays with the car forever. I really want to shorten it. This might be an awful idea, but looks like this design was an awful idea and they did it anyway. So maybe I just shorten it and then we don't have the issue of reinstalling this and this bolt being too long. Because if you think about it, this very tip of the bolt is pretty useless. It doesn't have threads on it. It doesn't really serve a purpose. And all of these threads are not going to be necessary either because our nut sits inside of the slit right here. So if we just shorten this, we're not going to have the issue of this bolt sticking out so far and not letting our bushing slide in. And while this is definitely not the safest way to do it, I need to compress our suspension before tightening down our bushings. Otherwise, we will shorten their lifespan. We're doing a solid 75 miles an hour. The car seems to be great. We have no shakes. We have no significant pulling to the side. Obviously, the steering wheel is a little off center. That's to be expected after such an accident, as well as after replacing the tie rod. But it's not nearly as bad as it could be. And after the wheel alignment is done, we're going to be great. We do have the TPMS light, which is unfortunate. I'm guessing it's just a bad sensor or dead battery in a sensor in one of the wheels. My scanner wasn't able to figure out, it wasn't able to connect to the TPMS system on this car, unfortunately. So I was never able to figure out what this was, but I think I'm just gonna have the alignment shop address this. Hopefully it's not gonna be too expensive, but I would really like to sell this car with no TPMS light on the dash. All right, here we are at Walmart. I decided to come to Walmart for the TPMS repair because Firestone had quoted me almost $200 for fixing our TPMS light. They replaced two sensors, $213 for two sensors. That is wild. So I said no thank you, and I went to Walmart, and drum roll, guess how much Walmart did it for? $36. That is wild. It looks like it's some sort of a deal, 2 for 1. Usually the pricing is a little more. I was expecting it to be $100, but nope, 36. Very happy about that, obviously. So great way to save money. We have no lights on dash and we are good to go. Good to sell this car, hopefully. Actually, no. On the way here, I noticed an exhaust leak that is significant enough for me to really be bothered by it. You probably can hear it. It's really not that bad, but it is definitely there. So I think I'm gonna get this car back on the lift. We're going to investigate the exhaust leak and probably do a little bit of welding. And after that, we'll be able to list this car up for sale and be done with it. Hopefully forever, and never have to do any work on it. And whoever buys it will never have to do any work on it, and it's just gonna run forever and ever and outlast this planet. A little optimistic, I know, but hey, a man can dream. It didn't take much to find out where the exhaust leak was coming from, so let's get to work. Chances that this nut is going to loosen up are... Oh, wow. Oh, okay. That's fine too, I guess. So now we need to remove the existing stud. But unfortunately, even with a molten metal bath, they would not come out. So I had to get creative. And in the end, this is what it looked like. We ended up buying a brand new one of those gaskets, as well as welding on 2 chopped up bolts that I turned into studs and threw some nuts on them. It doesn't look great, but it is functional, it works, and it doesn't leak. I replaced this idler pulley thinking that was what was making our accessory belt noise. Alright, I have the MAF sensor plugged in, we have the pulley on, we have the belt on. So let's start it up and see if the noise is gone. It is definitely not gone. To try and identify or isolate this noise, I started spraying a fogging oil on different pulleys and seeing if the noise is going to change. I guess it could be our power steering pump. In retrospect, I knew that at the very beginning. I think I heard, yeah, there's a bit of a power steering noise, but I guess somehow during this whole repair and ownership time, I totally forgot about that. All right, I did get this used power steering pump from an Impala that should be the same, and we're gonna test it out. I really didn't want to spend money on the new one. I'm really not confident that's what we're dealing with, because our existing pump looks perfectly fine. I see no reason why that would be making noise. Despite my skepticism when I started it up, outside of some priming noises, the thing was quiet. This is great news. So with no time to waste, I listed it for sale. And here we go. The G6 sold for $4,250, my asking price. This was actually hard to sell because of how many people I had texting me about it. I had multiple people trying to schedule on the same day, and they kept trying to beat each other and coming earlier and earlier. Long story short, one person canceled, the other person did show up. There was one more potential buyer who was going to come a little later today. I told him, I'm sorry, if somebody takes it, they take it. It's first come, first serve basis, so it is what it is. This was actually one of the most successful flips I've had so far. Largely because we bought it for this cheap, $750, and with all the fees and everything, that ended up being $1,200. Here are all the parts that we ended up installing, and we invested $753 into this car, meaning that our total investment was $1,961. And with a sale price of $4,250, looks like we made ourselves almost $2,300, which is even higher than our initial investment, meaning that we more than doubled our money, which is great. Hopefully the car serves them very well for a very long amount of time, and we got more cars to buy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.